Hey up. Right, this video's been a really long time coming, believe it or not, about 4 years. I might have mentioned this guy before, about 8 years ago, while I was working in the garage. An old guy, I think he's in his 80s, Colin Alwyn, popped over and started chatting to me. Now, I think his health's failing. I've not seen him for about a year, but it became a regular thing that he came to visit me. And he was one of the original ton-up boys. I think he started riding around about the age of 17 in the late 1950s. In fact, he always takes great pride in telling me that he still has his first motorcycle, a Norton, I can't remember what model it is, in bits in his loft, and it's moved house with him several times over the decades. Now, on one occasion, he brought with him some old black and white photographs taken, I would say, in the late 1950s. He looked really young, working on this very Norton in his backyard, and he was wearing his motorcycle gear, and it was really heartwarming to see that he was wearing a Barbour International jacket. Now, be warned, this entire video is likely to turn into a historic trip down memory lane. If you don't like that kind of thing, switch off now. Now, I remember asking him, surely you would have had a leather jacket in those days as a ton-up boy, and he explained to me that actually very few of the cafe frequenters or racers or ton-up boys wore leather jackets because they were too expensive. The cheapest leather jacket was round about £28, which was more than he'd paid for his bike second hand. He earned around about £2.50 a week as an apprentice carpenter, and a Barbour jacket was under £6 new. So leather jackets among these young riders were very rare. And as we all know, leather in reality is a very impractical material for riding a motorcycle in all weathers. Now, I had several conversations with him on this subject over the course of a year or so, and it became quite clear that the general image that we have of a leather-clad cafe racer or ton-up boy is a very inaccurate one. It wasn't like that at all. Okay, some of them had leather jackets if they could afford it. More often than not, it was synthetic leather. But actually, our impressions of how they actually dressed back in those days is false. Influenced mainly by the cinema, which in turn influenced documentary makers, newspapers, who would always seek out that sort of leather-clad stereotypical cliche whenever they wanted photographs or film. Now, I know I do use the word iconic quite regularly when I'm looking at these kind of products, but I always choose that word very carefully. I don't use it when it's not justified, and this jacket truly is a motorcycling icon. This is the original purpose-made motorcycle jacket that can still be obtained today. And you can pick it up for a pretty reasonable price if you're prepared to shop around. The first Barbour International was a one-piece suit designed by Duncan Barbour specifically for the 1936 International Six-Day Trials. Made from waterproof waxed cotton, it was an instant success and quickly became the benchmark for all motorcyclists, not just entrance into the trials. Even though it had been specifically designed for motorcyclists, it soon became popular with the likes of farmers. In fact, anyone that worked outdoors and needed good protection against the weather. And then, in the outbreak of World War II, it attracted the attention of the British military. This led to the development of the Barbour International jacket, more or less as we know it today. The suit was cut in half and turned into a two-piece jacket and trousers, particularly for the Royal Navy and for submariners. And then, after the war had ended in 1947, Barbour introduced this jacket to the civilian motorcyclist. This new iteration sported the now familiar slanted matte pocket on the left breast, and in its first year it proved to be such a market success that the following year in 1948, Belstaff released a carbon copy of it, the Trial Master, in an attempt to get a share of sales. In fact, this waxed cotton design motorcycle jacket is the most copied motorcycle jacket on the planet, and reached true international fame and popularity when the King of Cool himself adopted it. Now, there is a ladies' version of this jacket which I will show you before the end of this video, because the ladies are always complaining that I don't include anything for them. It's made pretty much to the same specifications as the gents' jacket, but obviously there are some anatomical differences which are incorporated into the jacket itself. The jacket's made from a heavyweight 8-ounce waxed cotton. This is a good compromise. It gives good weather protection and durability, but it's still pliable enough to be comfortable. It fastens up using a heavy-duty two-way YKK zip, and it's two-way for a reason I'll show you in a moment. And although Barbour have now abandoned motorcycle-specific gear, this jacket is still designed to the same original specification. The zip is protected from the wind and water ingress via one internal storm flap and then one external storm flap which fastens over the top of it. I should point out that this is not a new jacket. I bought it in the late summer of 2019 with a view to carrying out a review shortly afterwards, but then the pandemic hit us. I have worn it quite a lot, and recently, just before Christmas, I have re-waxed it, which sort of has restored the look back to near new. It's not been heavily used, but in those 4 years it has had a fair bit of wear. Internally, the collar is lined with a comfortable warm corduroy and fastens with a brass buckle and waxed cotton strap, and this does a really good job of keeping the drafts away from your neck. Now, just getting back to that two-way zip, it's designed so that you can unzip it just slightly from the bottom if you need to, so that you've got the freedom of movement you need to sort of assume a natural riding position. It also keeps the zip well away from your tank, a trick that a lot of modern motorcycle jacket manufacturers seem to have forgotten. The pockets are best described as capacious. Of course, you've got your mat pocket on the left-hand breast, which will easily accommodate your largest mobile phone, and even then you could stuff a few more items in there. It's protected with a press stud fastening storm flap. On the right-hand side, you've got another patch pocket, and when you open the storm flap, that reveals a zip, and then you've got two waterproof pockets at your hip that fasten up in the same way. The cuffs have a very simple two-position press stud fastening to get a nice tight seal around your gloves. Although I do have to admit, with my 8.5-inch wrists, I do have a little bit of difficulty with those when I've actually got gloves on, even on the slackest setting. Now, some people are probably going to consider this jacket a bit old-fashioned, but if you're riding a modern classic like the Royal Enfields or even the Triumphs, you know, this is absolutely authentic. Barbour International has become more of a fashion brand in recent years. As I've said, they've more or less abandoned motorcycle-specific safety gear these days. But I've expressed my views on motorcycle armour in the past. I'm not going to go into it in this video. At the end of the day, if you want motorcycle armour, just buy an armoured vest and wear it underneath. I am, as you know, a big proponent of waxed cotton when it's done properly, and Barbour do it properly. I've watched a lot of reviews of waxed cotton garments over the years where the reviewers regard it as a outdated technology that doesn't really keep you dry long term. Now, I've ridden with waxed cotton for decades, and it's the best wet weather protection I've ever had. I've tried your Gore-Tex and all your other high-tech materials. They're not as waterproof long term, and they don't last like waxed cotton does. If properly cared for, waxed cotton garments quite literally will last for many decades. It requires retreating once every 1 to 2 years, depending on how you store it and how much you use it. If you don't want to do that yourself, you can send it off to BARBOUR, and for about £50 they will re-wax it for you. And if your jacket becomes worn or damaged, BARBOUR even have a service where they will rebuild and repair your jacket for you to keep it going even longer. So if you care about sustainability, really this is a no-brainer. I don't really see the point of a plastic garment that will last 3, maybe 4 years before it's no longer serviceable and then has to be thrown away, and a waxed cotton garment which can potentially last anywhere between 20 and 40 years and even beyond. If you're the owner of a modern classic and you want authenticity, this is authentic. It's the real deal, the real McCoy. And the fact that this garment was designed over decades of trial and error by a knowledgeable company means you've got pretty much the perfect motorcycle jacket. It was the first and it was the best. Now, fit-wise, and this applies to the ladies' jacket as well, the style at the time was to buy these baggy and loose and just cinch them up with the belt. The reason being that they are unlined, they've got no insulation. And the idea was you would buy a jacket that was a bit too big for you, and then in the winter months you could layer up with a jumper and a few shirts or whatever underneath. It's a classic fit, and in that respect it's true to size. Now, BARBOUR do supply as an optional extra a fleece thermal liner that literally sort of clips into the inside of this jacket via press studs. Obviously the same is going to apply if you're going to want to use these, because it does take up a lot of room inside the jacket. Personally, I didn't get on with it, and I do prefer to just layer up with, as I say, a jumper and a couple of shirts or something like that. But that's up to you. Now, one of the great things about the BARBOUR International jacket, of course, is that it's accepted that you can wear these just about anywhere. In fact, a lot of people that own these don't own a motorcycle or go anywhere near a motorcycle. They perform well on a bike, but they also look great off a bike. Now, my partner doesn't ride, and I can't honestly remember the last time that she rode pillion with me, but when she saw me re-waxing my jacket just before Christmas, she decided she wanted one for Christmas, and I was happy to oblige because that's the kind of guy I am. Now, back in the 50s and 60s, BARBOUR didn't make a ladies' version of this jacket. There was just one jacket, and traditionally ladies would just buy a smaller size. I'm not quite sure when the ladies' version was introduced, but it is available now. Obviously it's been cut to provide a tailored fit for a lady's anatomy, and there are some differences with the pockets. I'm not quite sure how the Mac pocket would incorporate around lady bumps. So instead you've just got 4 symmetrical patch pockets plus an additional pocket on the left arm. The YKK zip is exactly the same, and of course it fastens up with a very similar belt. It has epaulets at the shoulders, which the gents version doesn't have, but it doesn't have the facility for the thermal liner to be clipped in place. That being the case, the ladies will have to layer up during the colder months. Now, it does have zips at the cuffs instead of the pop fasteners, which personally I think I would prefer, but that's how it is. But in my opinion, it is just as practical on a motorcycle as the male version. Now, I think the ladies version and the gents version are priced pretty much the same, round about £280. But you can buy these anyway, you don't have to buy them from BARBOUR. BARBOUR is now an immense high volume company, which means there are lots of high street and internet stores vying for your business that will offer far better deals. What I tend to do is I'll do a bit of research, I'll find the sort of cheapest version of it that I can on the internet, then I will go into the BARBOUR store to try one on. And the BARBOUR stores are usually willing to price match, providing the price that you've found is represented by a company that is an authorised BARBOUR stockist. And having said that, they must have the same size and colour in stock ready for immediate dispatch before they will price match to it. Either way, to my mind, with barber gear, it's always best to go into a physical barber shop and find out what your size is, what's suitable for you. And even if they can't price match it, you can then go away and order in confidence somewhere else, knowing that you're going to get the right size. I know certainly the gents jacket is available in the classic olive green, the Vincent black, as well as a weird red one and a navy blue one. I think in the ladies' versions it's just the black and the olive green, but I might be wrong on that one. I'm not going to leave you a link because the Barbour International jacket is it's world famous. You only have to put that into Google and you will immediately be presented with many resources so that you can start your search for one. Just be aware that in both cases, for the male and female, Barbour do make a sort of a nylon quilted fashion version, so don't go buying one of those accidentally thinking you're getting a good deal. Make sure that it is the waxed version that you're looking at. And as far as the gents version is concerned, I think they have one or two special editions going here and there. I think there's a Steve McQueen version and a Union Jack version. But the jacket that I've shown you today is the original, authentic cut. And if it was good enough for Steve McQueen, it's good enough for me. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and my other videos, and in doing so helping to support this channel. I really do appreciate it. I'd also appreciate it if you would leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. If you do subscribe, hit the notification bell and ensure that notifications in your channel account are enabled. That way YouTube will let you know whenever I upload a new video. You can help me out in other ways via the super thanks button down below or via Patreon. Either way is much appreciated. I am of course going to be back next week, so until then, please ride safely and I'll see you soon.